Buenas noches. Bienvenido a la quinta entrega de nuestro seminario de servicios avanzados. Toda la charla, incluyendo la introducción y las presentaciones que daré, será en inglés. Ahora mismo vamos a hacer un pequeño video donde están las instrucciones de cómo pasarse al canal de español. Habrá traducción simultánea o interpretación simultánea durante toda la sesión. Nos vemos en un segundo. Okay, welcome. I trust that everybody that needs the translation to Spanish is already in the Spanish channel. Good evening to everybody. Today we're going to talk, not we, because I am not going to be in the conversation, but the panelists will have a conversation about something that is very, very deep for me. And I'm very passionate about it. It is security programs. Security programs, I have seen them for the last 22 years be very, very effective in making the company or the organization get to a good security posture and keep it year after year after year. And we have seen within the same company an area that has been in the security program and another area that has not been, and the difference in risk and the difference in loss of data and loss of money have been really impacting. This is the proof that security programs really do work. We have been working security programs since the last 22 years or so, maybe 23. And the panel that we have today is the people that have been designing, implementing, operating security programs for a multitude of companies around the world in every vertical. Companies that are small and large, in different languages, in different locations, and some companies global. And they have successfully implemented security programs, and the companies that have implemented successfully these security programs have had very, very few security incidents, or we shall say major security incidents. Of all the companies that I know of in the world successfully implementing security programs, none have had a big breach. This is really impressive because every day, every week, we see news of big and small companies here and there, everywhere, losing data, losing money, losing name. So before I keep on talking, I will introduce the panelists and the moderator. I think these gentlemen are the best in the industry for security programs. And they have been working on and off with us for the last 20 years, or 22 or 3 years. We have been friends for a very long time with both of them. So let's start with Jonathan. Jonathan Goldberger is an accomplished senior executive with more than 20 years of success spanning security and technology, leveraging extensive experience, increasing revenues, improving margins, enhancing operational performance. Jonathan is a valuable asset for a company requiring advisory related to technology, stagnant sales, talent optimization, market pivots, business transformation, or needs assessment. His broad areas of expertise include leadership, mentoring, solution selling, program management, business development, cybersecurity, and strategic planning. Jonathan's career includes leadership positions in 26-person startups to 60,000-person global organizations, including Unisys, Cisco, SourceFire, Venafi, Swingtide, and CyberTrust. He has been responsible for up to 160 million book of business, led a 770 million profit and loss, and supervised more than 200 employees and contractors. Additionally, Jonathan establishes, reorganizes, and directs departments, programs, and projects. In his most recent role as Vice President and General Manager of Security Solutions, he enabled clients to secure their business with innovative solutions integrating industry-leading technologies. He's a change agent that spurs business growth, enables cultural change with business modernization, and draws from his extensive international experience. Jonathan attained his Bachelor in Science in Education, Secondary Education, Earth Science from University of Alabama. As a seasoned board member, Jonathan has led board positions with local community-focused boards as advisory positions with information security companies. Now we will introduce Michael Kimmick. Mike leads the Verizon Security Management and Cyber Risk programs globally, providing security assurance, compliance, and risk assessments to small and medium business and enterprise clients. Previously, Mike led the global managed security service and identity and access management, enterprise security services advisors, and client security engineers, supporting the Verizon Enterprise Solutions managed security service and solutions for commercial government clients. He is highly experienced with over 30 years in telecommunication business and 20 in cybersecurity roles, with the federal government and commercially in a wide variety of roles in engineering, leadership roles, and in networking and security. Mike has been with Verizon since 2005. He is also a veteran, having served 6 years in the U.S. Coast Guard performing telecommunications and maritime law enforcement duties. He is active in the community and has served on various boards and commissions of local government and non-government organizations, providing leadership and guidance to these organizations in various capabilities. Mike holds several degrees, including Masters in Management and Organizational Leadership from Colorado State University, along with a Bachelor in Science in Business Administration and an Associate degree in Business Management. He holds numerous certificates and certifications, includes Certified Information Security Systems Professional from ISC Squared, CRISC, ITIL Foundations, ACE, and SCSA, among others. Sorry for all the alphabet soup. So, and we will introduce also Christian Nani, if I find the paper. I should know him. Christian leads the professional services team at CISAP. He is in charge of the delivery of Verizon Security Program. CISAP Security Program, technical tests such as vulnerability assessments and penetration tests, and compliance gap analysis and audits for standards such as NIST 800-53, ISO, and PCI-DSS. He has had over 15 years experience in information security assessments and security program delivery. Before being Director of Professional Services at CISAP, he worked for Verizon, delivering both Security Management Program and Application Certification Program. Christian has a Bachelor in Arts in Computer Science from University of California, San Diego, and holds numerous certificates such as CISSP from IC Squared, more alphabet soup, Certified Ethical Hacker from EC Council, ISO 27001, Lead Implementer, and ISO 27005 Risk Manager. Well, thank you very much. Welcome again, and let's let the proceedings begin. Thank you very much.
CISAP, Sistemas Aplicativos. Durante este tiempo, hemos incursionado en muchas áreas de la tecnología de la información, liderando el mercado a través de la innovación, calidad y servicio al cliente, ofreciendo los siguientes servicios. Arquitectura, RIF-DR, equipo de respuesta a incidentes forenses Data Recovery, ingeniería y soporte, PMO, SOC, consultoría, outsourcing, capacitaciones y Customer Success. Realizamos operaciones en distintos países como Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panamá y República Dominicana. Además, nuestros clientes están situados en Estados Unidos, México, Centroamérica, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Chile, Brasil y otros países. Nuestro SOC en Guatemala se sitúa en el edificio Forum Zona Viva. Además, contamos con un segundo SOC en la ciudad de Panamá. Actualmente SISAP está certificado como CERT por parte de la Universidad de Carnegie Mellon, que a través de su software, Engineering Institute, nos ha dado entrada a su red de CERTs. Nuestro personal cuenta con más de 70 certificaciones de SIEM, Malware Reverse Engineering, Penetration Testing, Forensics, Incident Response, entre otras. SISAP, con más de 150 ingenieros trabajando para sus socios comerciales, con más de 1000 certificaciones, alianzas estratégicas con Nova Coast, IBM, Verizon, Contributor de Verizon, en donde SISAP contribuye generando reportes e información local recolectada, alimentando el reporte de este año, poniendo en el mapa la región de Centroamérica y el Caribe, que no habían tenido datos significativos anteriormente. También estamos certificados por FIRST, que es una confederación internacional de equipos confiables de respuesta a incidentes informáticos, que manejan cooperativamente incidentes de seguridad informática y promueven programas de prevención de incidentes. SISAP, Sistemas Aplicativos.
Good evening. Today we're going to talk about security programs and everything that composes them and what they actually are. Before me, I have two, what would you call, wooden puzzles that, if you look at them, they look simple and easy to make. However, they have been programmatically built to be this way, because if we disassemble them, building them is not that easy. I have with me Jonathan Goldberger and Michael Kimmick, that together we're going to be speaking about security programs. So I'd like to start with you, Mike. Let's start with the basics on what is a security program.
Thank you, Christian. That is a good question, and one that I actually get quite often. I view a security program as a roadmap or a structured guide to aid organizations in identifying and addressing items necessary to develop, establish, maintain, and continuously improve their overall security and risk posture. A security program can be complex, but it doesn't need to be. It's a business enabler, which I know sounds funny. A lot of organizations often refer to security as the Department of No. I'm sure we've all heard that in this business. But in reality, a well-functioning security program aids an organization in achieving their business goals and objectives by protecting the organization, the business, their customers, partners, vendors, employees, from the various types of disruptions and harm that can occur without a program that is continuously monitoring, evaluating, and improving the overall security and risk posture of an organization. So I view a security program as one of those key building blocks for every organization, every business, regardless of size or industry, because there are threats, risks, and vulnerabilities out there today for just about every type of business.
Thanks, Mike. So now that we know what a security program is, we need to trail back a little bit to see, when did the idea of security programs start, actually? Jonathan, do you have an answer for us with that?
Sure. Security programs really go back to the beginning of civilization. Because if you think of it, when organizations wanted to secure their community, their village, or they wanted to protect their food store, the amount of food that they've gathered from the harvest, they implemented a program, a group of controls to protect it. Now, over time, with information security and computers occurring, there's been a need to incorporate security programs for protecting the data and systems that organizations have. This originally came to play in the late 90s. ICSA.net was one of the initial security program organizations, and they created one to protect websites. Back during the internet boom, when everybody had a website and no one really knew how to protect the website. The security programs evolved for ICSA.net to where they created a program to protect the entire perimeter, and then evolved to the enterprise network as a whole. Security programs are designed to make it where an organization has a set of controls to protect a set of data. And as organizations' networks have evolved, so have those programs. And so when you think of a security program starting, this isn't a new product that was created by a Steve Jobs creative individual. It's not something that is comprised just of technology or just of people, but more so is based on how we as civilizations protect that which is most secure. And with the internet evolving, computers evolve use to phones and to a dissolved perimeter, the security program has evolved with it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan, for that insight. So, Mike, why do you think an organization should have a security program in the first place?
Well, as Jonathan mentioned, risks have evolved over time from the beginning of time. And because of that, there's always been a need for security programs. And Jonathan mentioned, data. It's not just the data, it's the assets that contain that data. And identifying and knowing what those assets are and knowing what are your critical assets, those type of assets and data that can put your business in jeopardy is why we have security programs today. As we talked about earlier, the programs help organizations in achieving their business goals. But in order to do that, they have to know where they're trying to go, how they're going to get there, and using all the assets at their disposal includes using that data and those assets to achieve those goals. So having a program that continually monitors for those threats and risks and vulnerabilities allows organizations to see those threats and address those before something happens that can put that business or that organization at risk. Organizations that have breaches or major incidents become distracted from their business goals and objectives, such as being profitable, because instead of spending time achieving those, they now have to spend time, money, and effort to rectify and remediate those incidents that have now put them at risk. And it's not just the risk financially, it's that long-term risk of brand and reputational damage that occurs, and the loss of support or faith in the organization from their partners, their customers, and their employees, which also impacts employee morale. So it's all linked. It's a very, it sounds complex, but when you step back and look at a program as a system for the entire organization and as a business, from a business perspective and the need from a business perspective to protect that data, those assets, your customers and your employees, you see how a security program becomes the responsibility of everyone in the organization.
Thank you, Mike.
Chris,
so, John, yes.
No, I just want to add to that because Mike made a really great point there at the end about the organization and really security being part of the organization. One of the biggest challenges for any cybersecurity executive or leader or technician is getting everyone to take security as seriously as they do. And by Mike mentioning how having a program really elevates the view of security within a business. And that in itself is a significant improvement and enables protecting those assets, as Mike referenced. It's a great point, Mike.
Thank you. And I think we've all seen this where in organizations that take security seriously, their employees also take it seriously. When they see that leadership doesn't really care or they do the bare minimum, the employees kind of follow that lead, and so they don't take it as seriously as they should either. So when organizations do put forth the effort and do security awareness training, for example, and show how the security and security awareness for the organization is everyone's responsibility, the entire organization is engaged then in protecting that company and their assets.
Thanks, Mike. So, Jonathan, Mike mentioned that one of the benefits of having a security program in an organization is the protection of the assets and that general responsibility that builds upon the program, that it's everybody's responsibility to actually have the security in place and do security. What other benefits can you think of having a security program in place?
Yeah, security programs have many different benefits for an organization. From the starting point, it provides a foundation for you to mature and expand your security organization throughout the business. That foundation includes giving you a baseline assessment, a baseline quantification of your security. I think what's really difficult for an executive board or the leadership of an organization is to understand through all the different threats that exist, what's real for our organization. And having a security program enables you to set the baseline and then to communicate up to the board, communicate outwardly to third parties, whether those are auditors or business partners, as well as communicate to business owners, the business within your organization, the security stature and importance of incorporating security in anything that's part of it, like the software development lifecycle. A security program enables, beyond the communication within and externally, it also enables you to provide your clients, the customer, an assurance of not only an organization taking security seriously, but also an assurance that their data is safe. I know when I go and buy something, I want to buy it from someone where I know my data is safe. I know that I will be safe. And having a security program with an organization is the starting point for that. One of the other things associated with the security program that I love to highlight is we're all leaders. We're leaders of cybersecurity within our organizations. And everyone else is looking for us to lead. Implementing a cybersecurity program is that active leadership where we're saying to our organizations, this is the foundation of securing our brand, our data, and enabling our success. And as a leader in cybersecurity, these are the things that we need to do. And it's not a nice to have, it's mandatory. There are other aspects of a security program that people can, other benefits to it. You can get a proactive budgeting because you're able to see the weaknesses within your organization's cybersecurity posture and therefore can budget out over quarters and years as you means to improve your security business, your stature, through purchasing technologies, through use of cybersecurity consultants, or implementing new policies. And then one last thing I like to highlight is it's one thing to know where you are, but you want to be able to say where you're going. And this is what a cybersecurity program enables. Because if you don't know where you're starting from, you really can't show the growth and the maturity of the business.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. So we have already talked about what a security program is and what benefits I can get out of a security program. However, Mike, what sort of activities and assessments should a security program have?
That's a good question. And again, it's one of those that's going to vary in a lot of cases. And the reason that it's going to vary is you have to understand what your business is. And first, what regulatory or compliance requirements do you have that you need to make sure you are adhering to? Most business industries either have, an industry type of regulatory or compliance requirement in order to do business, or, government regulations may mandate that you maintain some level of cybersecurity. So when you look at what type of activities should be included in the program, the first thing you need to do is understand what are you legally required to do from a regulatory perspective, and then from your market or vertical, what is the industry requirements? Now, we also have to remember that regulatory and compliance requirements are very specific or can be very specific, and only to those very specific items for that government regulation or that market or vertical that you're operating in. But that may still leave many areas of threats, risks, and vulnerabilities to the organization. We often say that just because you are compliant does not mean you are secure. That just means you have met the requirements for that compliance certification or that regulatory requirement. So you need to understand not only what those requirements are, but again, you need to know what your critical assets are. What bad things that might happen to your business or organization outside of those. For example, do you have a server that contains all your financial data? If that server was breached, what would be that impact to your business? Probably pretty significant, but does your regulatory or compliance requirement address that? Same goes for your customer lists, your employee information, your strategic plans, your whatever you're working on to develop as a new product or service. How is that information being protected? So you have to look at a lot of different things. So the activities in the program need to be appropriate to address the threats, risks, and vulnerabilities that can disable or disrupt the organization and your business objectives. We see many organizations that have an idea where they're trying to go from a business perspective, become more and more profitable. But in order to do that, we see them often take shortcuts and forget about some of those basic security controls that they need to have in place as they move forward. And that's where security programs help, because they can take a look not just at your overall regulatory and compliance requirements, but that's where those business objectives come into play, and where the security professionals can really help you understand all the threats, risks, and vulnerabilities along the path towards that profitability in your business objectives. And this is, one of the key areas that a lot of organizations forget about, because they get so focused on the regulatory or compliance needs, they sometimes forget, as they're developing new products and services and solutions, to look at all the threats and risks that they go through along the way to get there, in how they develop and roll those products and services out. So again, it's looking at regulatory, compliance, and then business objectives, and all those things, the platforms, the tools, the systems, the plans, how you're getting there. You need to protect that, because that is the key part of your business.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you, Mike. So, knowing that the activities or assessment that I should do are based on business objectives and regulatory or compliance needs, Jonathan, what is the right security program for an organization?
Yeah, that's a question that people want an easy answer. They want to be able to just, go online, buy this standard repeatable thing and just apply it and I'm good. But the reality is, an organization needs to identify what their objective is for the security program. And the objectives could be numerous. It doesn't have to be just one, but there's going to be priorities. And understanding what those priorities are would be the first thing I'd recommend when someone's looking at a security program. For example, as an organization, are you seeking just being more secure as your biggest priority? Is it to communicate your security state to a business partner, to a third-party auditor, to internal audit? Is it to get a security baseline across all the different business units within an organization? Or perhaps there's a newly acquired portion of your business, and you want to ensure that that newly acquired portion of your business is up to the level of standard as the rest of your organization. There's also the possibility that an organization wants to truly accelerate their security state. There's many objectives. When you first identify the objective or objectives that are right for you, you can then go and look for the right security program, the right security program vendor, and real partner in building the program that's right for you. I know that when I work with executives, especially the CFOs and the CIOs of organizations, they want to make sure that they're getting the most value from whomever they choose. And so I always highlight, make sure you're getting someone who's experienced, someone who's been doing this for a while, who has walked the halls of RSA conferences and seen the different security technologies and understands what is necessary when you couple security technologies with security policies and security professionals. It's also important to note that the organization you work with, the program that you have, it is based or is designed within your culture, your country, your business, so that it speaks to securing the way you do business. From working globally, I know that business is different, whether I'm in Asia, whether I'm in Latin America, Central America, or if I'm in the US. Business is different. And it's important to make sure that the security program is relevant to the business in that community. And not just the program, but the people who are delivering the program. So many programs exist that are the same, the exact same, regardless of what you do, regardless of your size, regardless of what data you have within your organization. As Mike stated, your assets are really what you're trying to protect. And so it's important that the program and the personnel that work with the program understand who you are, you understand what your objectives are, and then you can build the proper program.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anything you want to add,
If I
Mike?
could just, yeah, I did. I mean, Jonathan made a lot of good points, particularly around culture around the world. One of the things that we're seeing today is an increased threat and risk from things, malware, ransomware. And the bad actors are using different cultures as different ways to gain access, via spam or those types of, social engineering. And they utilize different tactics based on culture, knowing that, how someone will react in, say, the United States to a particular type of email message may be different than how someone in, say, Switzerland may react, or somebody in Guatemala may react. And they tune those types of messages and social engineering ploys for the culture that they're dealing with. And those are some of the types of threats and risks that the security professionals in this space are very aware of, because we see that day after day, and we're very cognizant of the different threat actor methodologies that are being employed around the world, all after the same thing. We all know that most of the bad actors are after one thing: money, and trying to find ways to profit from their actions. They really aren't concerned about you or your business. They're after money. And that's one of the things that many organizations sometimes forget about. They're not going to always just target the asset. They're going to target the people. So that's the other thing that everyone needs to be aware of, is how can I also protect my assets via my people? And that kind of circles back to that whole security awareness in the organization. Everyone from the CEO down to the person that just started in the mailroom needs to understand how to identify those threats and risks that may come at them.
Thanks, Mike. One of the questions that maybe a lot of people in the audience might have right now is, should I buy a program or implement it myself? Mike, can you give us a little bit of insight into this?
Sure. And I'm a little partial to that, since this is the space I've been in for many years. But my view is, if your business is not cybersecurity, you're in the business for whatever it may be, whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, whatever. You probably didn't get into business to focus and worry about cybersecurity. And that's why we have organizations like us that specialize in this. This is what we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is where we live and breathe. We know what's going on around the world. We know what the bad actors are doing on a regular basis. We know when they change tactics and tools, how they're targeting things. And that's something that, most organizations don't have the resources to monitor on a daily basis, all of that type of information. So third-party providers of this type of service really have an advantage, because this is what they do. And because of that, they've got the threat intelligence feeds and information and expertise to sift through everything that's happening. And with their buying power, they can generally do things and buy systems and spread out that cost across a lot of customers to make the cost of providing the service generally much better than having to build in that yourself and all the resources required, all the funding for the platforms, the training, the tools, the people to do this on a 24/7 basis. And because they're doing this all the time, 24/7, they can see when other threats and risks start bubbling up towards the surface, new things, and that allows them to be proactive in putting things in place to help protect you because they're seeing it in other places. Whereas if you are isolated doing it all yourself, you don't have that kind of visibility and access to those types of resources to be on top of it like third parties that provide this type of service can do.
Okay, very interesting, Mike. So, Jonathan, let's say I decide to buy a security program. How do I choose the right vendor for delivering that program?
Well, it's quite simple from a list of characteristics you're seeking. Now, who it is might not be, but the characteristics that you want are simple. You want someone who has a transparent model. That transparency is going to tell you their cadence of doing activities, the framework that they're using for assessing the program and implementing the program, the reporting that they provide, making sure the reporting communicates whether it's reporting up to the board or it's reporting to business units and part of the organization or reporting to third-party or internal auditors. You want to make sure that reporting is there. You want to make sure that this evolves over time. The technologies that we have for securing an endpoint or the technologies that exist to protect against cloud vulnerabilities, cloud weaknesses, you need to make sure that the organization evolves with both the technologies that they use and the best practices, frameworks that they're implementing. It's important that there's a threat intel component. You want to work with someone who truly understands security and at its foundational level recognizes that threat intelligence enables an organization to be more secure. You want someone who's been doing this for a long period of time with the expertise as an organization and the expertise within the consultants. And most importantly, you want a partner. You want someone who's going to partner with you so that as your security program needs to evolve, it evolves with you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
That's a great
Anything
point,
you want
Jonathan.
to add?
I mean, yeah, I was going to say that was a great point. I mean, what you want in a vendor is you want them to be an extension of your organization. So that partnership needs to be strong because you really want to view them as an extension of your team, and you want them to really know and understand you, your business objectives, what those threats, risks, and vulnerabilities are specific to you and your market, your vertical, and then how they can use that information and that expertise and that knowledge and experience all to the advantage of you to help protect you from any breaches and incidents and to make sure that your security and risk posture remains as solid as possible.
Thanks, Mike. So, Mike, I've been looking around and looking at different vendors that have security programs, and looking at them, I noticed that I'm already doing most of the activities they offer as part of the program. Should I still acquire a security program even though I'm already doing these activities?
Yes, and kind of falling back on some of my earlier comments, the advantage that a third party has is that expertise and that reach across all their customers and their experience, which is going to greatly exceed what an individual organization can typically do. So the power of that information, I mean, we've always hear knowledge is power, as is experience, because you can use that knowledge and experience to help organizations much more effectively than a small organization with just a few people focused just on that organization. Generally, from what we see, is most organizations have just enough people to do what's required for that organization, and they therefore don't really have the time to do the research and understand what else may be happening outside of the walls of their organization. So they may not be aware of the latest threats, risks, and vulnerabilities that could already exist within their organization, but they're not aware of the exploits that are already happening, whereas a third-party organization is going to have that type of research capabilities and threat and intelligence teams to be able to be constantly monitoring for those types of things, to be able to then pass that on and utilize that to help their customers improve their overall security and risk posture, protecting them from those new threats in the wild, if you will.
Thank you. So, given that it is important to have a third party implement or help you implement your security program, should this third party have some certification of some sort? What are your thoughts on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think of employees and experts that I want to hire within my organization as a leader, and someone having a degree, someone having a certification in a specific technology or framework makes them stand out. It gives me a defensible position. And that phrasing is really important here, because ultimately what an organization needs to provide is a defensible position associated with their security posture, whether it's to audit the executives in a business, the boardroom, or it's to their clients or their business partners. It's a defensible position. And a certification, having a certificate, provides significantly more defensible position in an industry where experts being differentiated from just someone off the street deciding that they want to do it. So I always recommend looking for a third-party certificate, a third-party validation, more so where there is a certification than simply a PDF report that says, here's your security state.
Yeah, that's a great comment there, Jonathan. I really like how you relate it to when we hire security professionals, we're looking for people that have degrees and certifications. The same should hold true with whoever's providing your security. What certifications do they offer? Because that in turn helps you with your business partners. It can help you with your regulators. It can help you with your insurance carriers. If you've got a partner that provides a security certification based on their services that you can then present to your insurance carrier, which will identify all the things you're doing and gives you scores based on that, that really sets that partner apart to that insurance provider, because now they can say, okay, now I see everything you're doing to protect your business, your assets, your customers, your partners, and your employees. And that makes a tremendous difference.
So, Mike, Jonathan, and you as well, mentioned the importance of having a third-party certification. However, suppose I'm aiming towards an ISO or a PCI certification. Is that enough to validate my security program?
This, from my perspective, PCI again is one of those industry requirements. So it's almost like a regulation. If you're going to want to use the payment card industry systems, you need to adhere to these things, otherwise you have to pay more to use those systems. So it's focused on the security around the payment card industry requirements. And that's good for the payment card industry specific items, but only for that. It doesn't address your overall organizational security. Likewise, ISO is nice, but again, ISO doesn't really validate the controls. ISO says, do you have this? Do you have that? Great, let's check the box. But it doesn't really test to see if those controls are actually applicable, if they're effective in providing the desired results.
If I could add to that,
I don't know, John.
Mike, there's PCI doesn't say anything associated with endpoint protection on tablets or on phones. ISO certification does nothing to ensure that you're protected from ransomware. There's true security challenges that exist for organizations that only a security program that holistically reviews your security posture and changes with the threat landscape. We talked earlier about threat intel and having a partner who truly is aware of the threats that are occurring in the wild. By having a security program that is at a foundational level coupled with threat intelligence, it enables you to protect your business, protect your assets versus meeting a control set. And that's what ISO does. PCI is a control set associated with the data and credit cards, but it's not an overarching security program.
Thank you. So is there any final thoughts any of you have so we can start wrapping up? Either Jonathan or Mike.
Hey, Mike, I think you're muted there.
Yep.
Yeah, I did. I did mute because there was a truck going by. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is, when looking at security programs, you need to look holistically on the overall benefits to the organization. As we just touched on, some of the things like compliance, around PCI, they're very specific and they address a specific need. But most organizations have more than one specific need. So there's the regulatory, there's the compliance, but then there's the overall security and risk posture for your organization. And that's what really needs to be looked at, is the overall security and risk posture and how different pieces of those building blocks really help build a strong foundation that can be continuously monitored and continuously improved as threats, risks, and vulnerabilities change and evolve as technology and the landscape changes. So everything is connected and it all needs to work together in unison. And the only way to really do that is having a good, effective program that is continuously assessing the organization, because the threats change. You may not have a threat today, but that doesn't mean there's a new exploit available for an unknown vulnerability that gets discovered tonight. So you need to have a program that can continuously monitor and improve the overall organization's posture. Jonathan?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. And I'd add 2 points that I'd want people to walk away from this conversation with. The first one, if you're in information security, whether a practitioner, whether a manager or a leader, I would highlight this is what executives, board members, businesses are wanting from you. They want you to lead and identify, how can we be more secure? What are those things we need to do to protect our assets? And I urge you to be that leader that others are looking for, because frankly, people outside of information security, it's really difficult to understand. And then the second point is if you're in IT or if you're a CIO or a VP of information technology, the benefit of a security program is that to build one yourself, you're going to need money, you're going to need time, and you're going to need experienced professionals who cost a lot of money. And that all, it would be great if we worked in a vacuum where the threats and the malicious activity wasn't occurring at the same time, but they are. And so a security program accelerates the maturity of your security and accelerates protecting your assets faster with less money.
Thank you, Jonathan. So before we go into the question sections, I would like to tell you guys that here at CISAP, we can actually help you implement security program either with the Verizon security program called Cyber Risk Program or with CISAP's Cybersecurity Program. Both of them are at your disposal, so we can actually help you out with that. We have a couple of questions. The first question is, they're asking how can it be presented towards the board members a security program as a competitive advantage?
Yeah, first off, I love this because I feel like the questions are really testing your eyesight, Christian, to be able to see what the questions are. The competitive advantage of a security program is firstly, it's protecting your brand. There's nothing worse than being on the front page of a newspaper, being on having to explain to your clients or business partners how you lost data, or even worse, having an operational outage that inhibits you from producing for your clients. And having a program proactively gives you that defensible position that you are doing those things necessary to reduce the likelihood, reduce the chance of those things occurring. One other point is, you have to be able to communicate to the board the value of a program. And being able to talk instead of just threat, but rather about security maturity, protecting the brand, protecting the operations and the deliverables to clients, that's what a program allows, versus without a program, you're just going to the board saying, I need more money for ransomware, I need more money for this malicious activity on endpoints, and it becomes a whack-a-mole activity. They become almost tired of it.
Yeah, I agree, Jonathan. And the other interesting thing is, from what we have seen and what we have experienced with our programs, is because they're evidence-based programs, which are much better. There's some programs that are just, question and answer, fill in the box and then we'll give you a rating. An evidence-based program, a program that does vulnerability scans and kind of shows you what your vulnerabilities are and provides prioritized recommendations, for example. That kind of information is solid evidence that you can present to a board and say, look, here's why we need to do this. These are true threats and risks to the organization, and not addressing this can really damage the brand, the reputation, our business relationships with partners, customers, etc. Because now you have verifiable evidence to show that you've got a situation that needs to be addressed. So now you've got that hard evidence that most boards are looking for, rather than just, well, we think we need to do this because that's what everyone else is doing. Now you've got hard evidence to show we've got the evidence. We know there's threats out there. We know there's exploits available for these vulnerabilities. And this is what we need to do to address that. You've got the hard evidence, and it makes a much more compelling argument to the board to achieve to receive that funding you need to achieve the results that you're looking for.
Mike, that's a great point. When you're talking to the board, nothing resonates more than money. The cost to the business in financial terms. And so when you do have a security program, it enables you to talk about costs in financial terms, whether it's an assembly line going down, whether it's a loss of a partner, whether it's not being able to issue credit cards, whether it's a loss of brand. That financial statement is what's going to raise their eyebrows and enable them to understand the risk.
Thank you, both of you. One of the things that I would like to add to what Mike and Jonathan said is that security programs are actually the business enabler. People like to think of security as a whole actually as the brakes of the business, but I would like you to really think about what the brakes in a car actually do. And if you start to think about it, you start to realize that the brakes in a car is what it actually lets you go fast. It's not what makes you stop. Because I would bet that nobody in the audience would get in a 5-figure car going in the Autobahn in Germany at 200 miles an hour without brakes. So therefore, that's why I think and believe that security is actually the business enabler to make your business go actually fast. We have a couple of other questions. One of them is, how do you effectively measure your security program?
Okay, this is Mike. I can start off with that. An easy way, in my view, is from those results of your, so for example, a security program that performs assessments, those results and then trending of those results. So over time, you should be able to see that the number of vulnerabilities are decreasing. The complexity of the organization is not as complex as it was because you have put measures in place to address those threats and risks. One of the things that we like to see in programs is trending over time to see how the program is performing. Are vulnerabilities going up? Are they going down? They're remaining the same? Is the cost of taking the appropriate action remaining the same, going down, going up? How is everyone handling the various elements of the program? You should be able to measure whether you're achieving the goals. Remember, I said that a program is a roadmap, shows where you're trying to get to. So over time with those measurements, you should be seeing yourself getting further down that road that you're trying to go down and seeing the results the way you want to see them. Because without the program, you won't be able to see where you've gone off course. The program is that roadmap to help you get from point A to point B. And again, it's continuous. So once you reach point B, you need to, continue with the program and your next destination. And again, keep monitoring to make sure you are on track, on the right road to get to where you're trying to achieve.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments, Jonathan?
Yeah, he's right. The baseline needs to be set. You need to show trending over time. And again, geez, I almost wish I held that comment from the last time, which is try to put it in financial terms. When you provide a red threat, a top threat to an organization, try to quantify what the cost would be to the organization if that business unit were to be affected, if that server or group of servers were to be affected, if you were to have a significant portion of users not be available. Because at the board level, they know numbers and they know money. And your ability to communicate the threat and the risk in financial terms, that's going to resonate.
Thank you, Jonathan. So we have another question. In an organization that does not have a CSO or a CISO, which is the best way to convince top executives, including the CEO and the board, on the need to have such function or unit?
You know, that's a great question. If an organization today doesn't have a CISO, and they likely might not feel that security is that important, how do you convince them of that? How do you provide the information that, in fact, security is important, and the board needs to have a responsible point to refer to with all responsibilities of security? It starts with what your business is and looking at your peers in the business model that you're in, as in if you're in manufacturing, if you're in the financial space, if you're in commercial, looking at how your peers, the other peers that have a security responsible party, a CISO, that would be one thing I'd look at. Because the board wants a defensible position. If they're not doing something that everyone else, all their other peers are, they then lose that defensible position. I also would highlight the importance of getting a clear line of communication between leadership and information security. And you want to make sure that you have someone who's ultimately every single day living that life, and leadership knows directly who to go to. Instead of going to the server guys for a server weakness or a server threat, going to the endpoint guys for an endpoint issue, going to the database folks for a database issue. You want to have it where there's a CISO, a security professional, who's ultimately the point of responsibility. And then the one last thing I would say is it doesn't hurt to provide FUD, you know, to provide the fear and uncertainty and ask the question of how would we respond if we had a security incident? Who would the board talk to? And in that scenario, working with a partner to do something as simple as a tabletop exercise where the partner comes in, sits down with leadership, and walks through what do we do when there's an event, that will highlight the need of having a security representative. Mike?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Jonathan. I like, you know, asking the question to executive management, what would we do if this happened? How would we handle that? How would we react? Who would be responsible for leading the reaction? And when, you know, you mentioned peers in your industry, a great way is to look at something like the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report, which breaks out security incidents and breaches per market and vertical. This year's, I think they did 16 different markets and verticals. You can show that. You can talk to insurance carriers and say, hey, what do you recommend for businesses like ours? Most insurance carriers are very in tune with cybersecurity these days, and they can help organizations understand what kind of threats and risks are out there for them. And they also use, you know, information from the Data Breach Investigations Report, and they can help organizations determine where to start. If you've got no CSO, no chief risk officer, nobody really in charge of security, most insurance organizations would highly recommend to the CEO that they establish one and they establish a security program, because the benefits to the business, you know, a lot of the things we discussed today, they will pretty much point to those same things, as well as the advantages to the organization financially in their insurance premiums, as well as the benefit with their partners that they deal with and customers. So there's a lot of different ways to present. It's finding the right buttons. And I think something like the Data Breach Investigations Report, which can highlight peers in their industry, as well as the insurance industry, is a great place to start. And again, as Jonathan mentioned, asking the question, what do we do if this happens? Who's in charge? How do we handle it?
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. So we have time for one final question, and they're asking, what would you recommend the approach to the board to be in order to convince them to invest in cybersecurity program and a continuity strategy when they don't know anything about the subject, the vision, and the benefits? What steps can I take?
Money, money, money. Hey, you have to talk. You have to talk in terms they understand. And this is, I joke about that, but this is a common challenge that I have when I'm working with security professionals. They say to me, CISOs all the time say, the board doesn't listen to me. The board isn't listening that I need money, or I need to support this initiative. The board just looks at my reports and say, this isn't telling me anything. And the reason being is the board, they're business people. They're working on they know loss, they know gain. And so when you speak to them about security, to Christian's point earlier about a business enabler, you need to speak to the loss of business that's possible if a security program is not implemented, if ransomware were to occur, or manufacturing were to cease. I always ask an individual who's a CISO, I say, how much does it cost you per minute to have an outage? And usually they'll know whether it's regarding customer deliverables or it's regarding downtime to a public-facing site. They'll be able to quantify that. And I would speak in those terms.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jonathan. That it always comes back to explaining to the board the bottom line. This is how not having the program will impact the bottom line. Here's how having a program will help improve and ensure that bottom line continues to be good. Because not having a program in today's environment is quite risky anymore. Maybe 25, 30 years ago, you could get away with it. I don't think in today's business environment, an organization will be very profitable very long without some sort of security program to help protect the organization. We see it even from the smallest businesses being hit these days with ransomware. We see it with small towns and villages being hit with ransomware. And the amount of money they pay out is more than a security program would have cost them to begin with. And that's an excellent way to demonstrate that. Just pull the information. Your insurance provider can tell you that kind of information in most cases, saying, yes, this, we may not identify the town, but there have been this many towns in this region in the past year that had to pay out for either ransomware or some other major security incident that shut the government down or shut the business down for X amount of time, and they lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars because of those outages or the impact. So to Jonathan's point, it always goes back to the bottom line, and that's what gets board of directors' attention.
Thank you very much, Mike and Jonathan, for all this information you have provided for us. I'm sure the audience has taken a lot from it. And thanks to the audience as well for joining us tonight. And I invite you to join us on Thursday for our next talk. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Got it? Sorry. Technical problems, but little glitches. Mike and Jonathan. Thank you very much, my friends. I really appreciate the time and the sharing of your experience and knowledge. And everybody, this is something that that you must take very seriously. If you do not have a program, it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be enormous, but it has to be constant. So you can measure and step up every cycle of the program. This is a destination. No, it is not a destination. It is the road. The destination is keep the business going. And the road is make it secure. Many of us, and a couple of days ago, we talked about digital transformation and what the pandemic is accelerating some initiatives in business transformation. And we think that there is no possibility of a successful business transformation without security, because everything in the new world is based on trust, and trust you build through consistent security to your customers. If you cannot get that trust, you will not be able to successfully go into the next version of your business with a digital transformation. As Christian told previously, the example of the brakes in the car, perfect. Everybody has a car and everybody knows the brakes. Everybody thinks the brakes are for stopping, but really,
los frenos, todo el mundo piensa que son para detenerse, pero no, excelente ejemplo.
This technology, the cloud, the many things have been
en la nube, la tecnología,
to help us have this, let's call it the brave new world with digital. So, again, thank you very much.
Gracias nuevamente.
Talk about
vamos a hablar.
The human is important part of the.
Es una cuestión importante.
And most of the time, it's the weakest.
Y muchas veces.
So how are we going to defend the human as well or better than we are defending the other assets in our organization?
Otros bienes en su empresa.
So be with us next Thursday. Thank you very much.
Así que por favor estén con nosotros el otro jueves.
Was not that bad. I haven't practiced it for the whole pandemic because everything is done in Guatemala now.
Así que todo se hace ahora.
Thank you very much. And
Guatemala, así que muchas gracias y que tengan una buena noche. Volví a entrar y yo vi que dijo adiós y por eso fue que me salí, disculpen. Y porque vi que Cristian cerró la charla.